Hi, I'm Karlene. I'm an immigration attorney, and today I'm going to talk to you about how you can increase your chances in getting an H-1B visa. By the end of this video, you will understand how you can apply for an H-1B visa, your chances of getting approved for an H-1B visa, and what are some of the pitfalls in not obtaining your H-1B visa. Is it really possible to get an H-1B visa in this climate? Because after all, it's a lottery. Yes, it is. Is it really possible that you can get an H-1B visa and also apply for your permanent residence? Is it possible to have an H-1B visa and have your entire family get the H-1B visa as well and the permanent residence? I'm going to answer all those questions and even more in this video. Well, how does this H-1B visa actually works? Because after all, it's a lottery. The government only allows 65,000 H-1B visas every year, and they give 20,000 extra to people who have master's degrees. So you have 65,000 visas. Of the 65,000 visas, probably about 3,000 are given to people from Australia, and about 1,200 are given to people from Chile. Just a little special treatment there, but it's not a lot. So how does this system even work? Because it's like we were saying, it's a lottery. Well, every year, April 1st, the government says, okay, it's time to apply. So you actually have to apply, submit an application, almost like a lottery, but you submit an application in order to apply for the H-1B visa. If you get picked, then you can apply for the H-1B visa. Now, in the past, people would just submit tons and tons of applications. The government will get over 100,000 applications. Of the 100,000 people who apply, the government would pick 65,000. Now it's still a lottery system, but this is how it works. You apply, you submit an application, and if you get picked, then you can apply for the H-1B visa. And I think the government did it like this so it's a little bit more easy, it's easier to control. Now, what are the best ways for you to get picked and for your chances of winning the H-1B visa? Number one, you must be a professional. You must have a bachelor's degree. Now, there are people who say, well, I don't have a bachelor's degree. But you know what? There's a way around it. If you have 20 years of experience, you can use an evaluation service in the United States to evaluate your experience and give your certificates stating that your experience is equivalent to a bachelor's degree in the United States. I think that's wonderful, because that's one way that if you don't have a bachelor's degree, but if you have experience, you can apply for a visa. And I think that's a great way. Number two, you need a sponsor. Now, you need to find a sponsor that has a company, a real company. I know that there are people who say, well, you know, my friend, he's willing to open up a company and then he can sponsor me. Well, you need to ask your friend, if he's willing to open up a company, how many years does the company have? Is the company paying taxes? Does the company have a valid federal tax ID number? Does the company have a bank account? Does the company have employees? Does the company have enough money to pay your salary? Because your friend cannot determine what your salary should be. Your friend has to pay the salary that the Department of Labor decides. So if the Department of Labor says you need to make $90,000 a year because of your qualifications, because of your degree, your friend better be able to pay that. Because if not, you will not get the H-1B visa. Once you get the H-1B visa, does it mean that your family also gets the visa? Yes. Your spouse will get H-4 visa, and your children under 21 years of age will also get the visa. Are they allowed to work in the United States? Well, your children won't be able to work. Your children should be attending school according to the government, and that's correct. But your spouse will be able to work. Your spouse will be able to get a valid work permit in order to work in the United States. Now, of course, your spouse can work wherever he or she would like to work, but you have to work within the company that sponsors you. What happens, and this happens a lot, where the employer becomes abusive to because the employee is a foreigner or a foreign national, and sometimes the employer doesn't want to pay the H-1B employee. It happens a lot. They decide, okay, you're here, you're a foreign national, I don't need to pay you, but you know what, you need to work. That is not allowable in the United States. If a situation like that occurs with you, then please call the Department of Labor, write a letter to the Department of Labor, not the police, the Department of Labor, and get the Department of Labor to investigate the situation. And if they find that there was an abusive situation where the employer doesn't want to pay you, then the Department of Labor will get involved and will ensure that you get your payment, you get your salary, because it's very difficult for people to give up their homes, give up their jobs, move to a new country, like for example the United States, and they're relying on their salary to maintain themselves and to maintain their families. So the employer is obligated by law, when your employer decided to apply for you to get the H-1B, your employer signed a contract upon signing that application that they'll take care of you, they'll pay the salary, and they'll pay the salary that the Department of Labor decides that he should pay. And he swore by applying and signing that application that he was able to pay that salary to you. So he has to pay the salary, and do not accept an employer not paying you the salary that he needs to pay you. If you're with the H-1B visa and your employer decides that they would like to sponsor you in order to give you the permanent resident, that's okay and that's acceptable. One of the things that you should remember, do not apply for the same position that you're in. If you're going to apply for a labor certification, that's a permanent resident through your employer, and you're working as a sales manager, let's say, in the H-1B capacity, do not put sales manager if you're going to be applying for the labor certification for the permanent residence. Just make it a little bit different. And remember too, if you're applying for your permanent residence through your employer, your experience with your employer, your present employer, the experience does not count. You have to show that you have prior experience in another company prior to working for your present company in order to apply for the labor certification. These are rules that the Department of Labor has. These are rules that the Immigration Service has, the government has. Sometimes they don't make sense, but you know what? Those are the rules. So just remember that before you accept an offer of employment or an offer for permanent residence from your employer, remember that your experience with the employer, your present experience with the employer will not count. Any experience that you had prior, yes, will count. And as far as the salary is concerned, it could be the same salary or a better salary. Remember too that in order for your employer to sponsor you, they have to prove that there are no Americans who can do your job. And usually that's done by placing an ad in the paper, and we'll talk about that in the next video. But I want you to know that you have to be careful when you're applying for your permanent residence. It's wonderful, you can get your permanent residence, but you must remember that all the rules have to be followed and that the employer has to follow the rules of the Department of Labor. I'm Karlene. I'm an immigration attorney with 35 years of experience. Subscribe to our channel and we will give you more information on this and other kinds of visas. This link above will take you to more videos that will help to explain the H-1B visas and more visas, and the link is also in the description below.